welcome everybody. This is our interview with Darren Fittler. Darren is a attorney in Australia. He's also blind, and we wanted him to meet everybody. So everyone say hi to Darren, and Darren, say hi to everyone
hello,
here.
everyone.
And so, Darren, we know you're a blind attorney. You're in Australia. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice, the kind of firm that you're working for, and what your work looks like?
Sure. I work for a firm named Gilbert Tobin. There are 3 offices across Australia with perhaps around 350, 400 lawyers with 500 to 600 staff in total. The partnership is probably about 60, 65 partners. And I have been here for almost 10 years, and in the last 3 or 4 years I've started to develop my own specialty practice in not-for-profit and charity law, and bringing together my experiences in corporate law and mergers, acquisitions, in technology law and contracting, and then some of the time I spent here was in my firm's pro bono team, when I really started to get down and interested in very specific pointy bits of law that deal with charities and charities alone, such as charitable fundraising, income tax exemption, receiving of deductible gifts and all that kind of stuff. And as well as having Australian-based clients, I have some international clients, and in fact do get contacted from time to time from people and attorneys in the US asking me about how they might be able to establish an arm or a chapter of their US-based charity over here in Australia.
Very interesting. So why don't you also give us an idea of your work environment? Because in the United States, there's a lot of attorneys working at similar-sized firms that have billable hour requirements and very, very strong productivity measures. So give me an idea of, working conditions.
Yeah, well, we are all expected to bill 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, and on top of that we are expected to spend a further half hour on signable non-billable tasks such as preparing presentations, client relationship management, knowledge management, business development, pro bono, and so forth. And of course, as everyone in the room will know, to clock up 7 billable hours usually means being in the office for 10, 11 or 12 or more hours, because it just doesn't make sense or not possible to bill your client for every single second that you happen to be in the office. But the work environment is one that is, I think it's fairly innovative and creative. I think the entrepreneurial spirit survives best in this kind of firm, where you need to make your own luck, and I wouldn't say completely sink or swim on your own, but yeah, you need to be a fairly independent worker here, and generally that means you end up with a fairly interesting and eclectic group of people around them.
I think a lot of your fellow blind lawyers here today would relate to that. In the United States, we have a very similar competitive legal market. Efficiency is important, and you're trying to get the work that is expected of you done in the time that is allowed is a challenge for any attorney. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you have approached this efficiency and productivity challenge, and specifically we're very interested to hear about the techniques that you're using, and maybe a little bit more about this alt software that I've certainly enjoyed incorporating into my work routine and efficiency tool set. But I'd love to hear how you're approaching this efficiency issue.
Before alt, I tried to use various different features that came built in with Internet Explorer or the Office suite or even Windows itself, with trying to invoke shortcut keys, trying to save favorites in my internet favorite, and doing actually quite a lot with the shortcut keys that just come native to the various programs, using the Windows Run command line to just type in quickly things to jump to, say, a website or a folder. But they were really only small gains in efficiencies and effectiveness in that way. What alt has enabled me to do is to take that to sort of the next level, and probably a level again above that. So I use alt in 2 ways. I use it to be as efficient as I can, and perhaps even more efficient than my peers, in doing everyday tasks that all of the people around this office would be doing. So doing Google searches, looking up pieces of legislation, looking up perhaps words in a legal dictionary or a regular dictionary, going out and checking an organization's business number and having a look at the details that are registered on our system, on our government system. And what used to take me some significant time in launching Internet Explorer, waiting for my firm's homepage to load, then going to the site that I'd like to go to, which might have been Google, then typing in a search term or a company number or whatever it might be, and then waiting for the results to display. I can now all do that with pretty well the 4 buttons to bring up the Alt system and to tell it that I need to do a Google search. I then type in my search term, hit enter, and away it goes, does the search, and then presents me with the search hit straight away. And because I'm doing this 10, 12, 20, 30 times a day for whatever reason, if I save myself seriously a minute every time, then I've just saved myself half an hour. And that, as I said, is what everybody across this firm is doing. And in theory, everybody in this firm could be benefiting from those efficiencies, because I tell you now, they're not going and doing Google searches as fast as I am now.
No, I think that's a great example in business productivity software, but the legal specific software. So can you give us an example of how you've used it in the specific context of software or websites for law?
Yeah, most definitely. So we have a number of legislative and case law repositories, databases in Australia, and I was taken by the way in which the Google search functionality of Alt operated and thought, I wonder if I can take this and learn from the way in which that was developed and develop my own Alt accelerator to jump me into some of these legal databases. With a bit of trial and error and a bit of playing around, which is one of the beauties of Alt. It's not, here's a program, it's completely locked down, you can only do what we've sort of developed for you to use. It's very open and intentionally so, which allows me to create my own jobs, learn from the way in which the out-of-the-box jobs have been created, learn from the developers of the software and those that are proprietors around good ideas and whatnot about how to achieve a particular task. So I was able to do a bit of reverse engineering, if you like, of some of the jobs that I was using and apply that then by creating my own Alt job to some of these databases that dealt specifically with law. I deal a fair bit with the Corporations Act. I deal a lot with Charities Act, Charities Commission Act, and I also deal with the Income Tax Assessment Act, which I'm sure everybody in the room would agree is highly exciting and interesting stuff. And we would, normally again have to go through that whole routine of going through my company's homepage first, and then launching out into the database, and then drilling down to the Commonwealth Acts, because like America, we have state and Commonwealth laws. And then from the Commonwealth Acts, you'd choose the consolidated version, and then from the consolidated version, you'd choose the ones that start with C, and then from the ones that start with C, you'd then choose the Corporations Act. And so it took a fair bit of drilling down and step by step. But now, just with a number of presses bringing up the Alt program and giving it the shortcut combination of keys and saying that I would like to go to the Corporations Act, I can just jump straight there.
Sounds really interesting. It's very similar. I think, a lot of our United States attorneys would relate with basically being able to, with one keystroke and then typing out a citation or copying and pasting a citation into Alt, and then automatically having it go out, get it on the internet and bring it straight to you, whether that's in Westlaw or another website. I think a tremendous time saver when you're trying to look at laws and cases on a regular basis. But that's certainly great in the space of web access, but a lot of us are facing company software. Maybe it's proprietary, maybe it's on an intranet, or maybe it's just a popular legal software such as FileSite or Summation or whatever. My impression is that you're using it with some of this software as well, and maybe that Alt even has the ability to not just provide proficiency, but provide some accessibility where you can't even get at some of the stuff with JAWS.
Internally, we use FileSite for our document management system, which is plugged straight into Microsoft Outlook. And so that the main and key piece of software, if you like, or application that I interact with every day. The firm's also rolled out a Cisco unified communications model where our PCs and our phones are all linked together, and we can make calls on our desk phone by using our PC. We also have a system called Elite, which is our time management and billing system, where we collect all those very important billable units and then generate bills and whatnot for our client. And we then also, for our client relationship management, we have a suite called interaction. It has a Windows or a desktop client and a web client to access the same data. And then sits around that we have Citrix, which I haven't really had all that much success with, but that's mostly because we also have VPN as an option. And so when I'm working remotely, I choose to come in through VPN, not through Citrix. And so whilst I'm sure there's ways around and ways of using Citrix quite effectively, I haven't bothered to learn how because VPN has just been working so well for me. When I am using FileSite, because that is the one I primarily use, there will be times when I need to open up a document, and there might be a document that I refer to quite a lot, a Word file where I might quickly note down some of the time that I've been spending for clients before I go ahead and enter that into the actual system itself, just because I don't have enough time. I just want to really quickly jot down what I'm doing, or it might be a list of my matters, or it might be whatever it is. And there's quite a long process involved in opening up FileSite and navigating to the right place, and in fact having certain parts of the screen where JAWS will only announce button, 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 edit field, edit box, button, button, and not really even knowing exactly what these things are, but having instructed Alt to do its job once, then from then on, I don't really have to worry about what's happening through all those phases or through all those steps, because I press the key sequence and Alt takes care of the journey for me and just presents me with the document that I'm after. And I've only really had Alt on my system for a couple of months now, and so I'm only still myself just unlocking all the potential that's there, and I can see that there's a lot. I'm hoping, for instance, with the unified communications, that I might get to a point where I can just simply type in the Alt command call and then type in a person's name, hit enter on it, and away it goes and calls that person for me, which will be a big time saver in itself, instead of hunting around trying to find that person's name. Or what I actually do now, which is a bit lazy, is I email my secretary and I say, hello, could you please dig out and send to me the email address or the telephone number for this person. There's plenty more that I can be doing with Alt that I haven't done yet, but I'm excited about getting into.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've really seen some of the advantages in terms of saving time, and you've gotten some time back. I mean, I've certainly seen that myself, that as I've been building jobs, you can program it yourself. This is a very intuitive interface where you can create your jobs, but I've been seeing that something that used to take me 10 steps and maybe 1 minute or 45 seconds now takes me at most 10 seconds, because I just simply hit my Alt command, the 3-letter command I've assigned for the job, and then away we go.
One of the functions that is just lovely in Alt is that we all know, for those around us that use JAWS, that JAWS will crash from time to time, either because it has a bit of a glitch with one of the systems, a dialog box pops up that for some reason just silences JAWS and it can't get over it, or just simply crash. Alt is not connected in any way with JAWS. I mean, Alt is its own standalone program, so even if JAWS crashes, Alt is still there to save you. And there's a great little Alt command where you can basically tell it to kill any running JAWS program in the background that might still be lingering, and then restart JAWS. And if you're a person that likes to mess around with different versions of it, you can even sort of say, well, kill version 14 and bring up 13, because I remember 13 was working better with this website last time, and 14 is not quite doing that yet. And so Alt can interact not just with web pages and guess proprietary software. It can kind of interact with Windows itself and with JAWS and with other programs. I have a laptop, and I'm sure the battery life would last longer if I had the screen off, but sometimes sighted people need to use the screen. So instead of having to navigate all through the various window settings, I'd love to create an Alt job that just goes screen off and the screen's off, or screen on and the screen comes back on again. And even more importantly, the touchpad that I keep accidentally bumping from time to time as I'm typing and moving the cursor to somewhere and doing something I wasn't actually expecting in the document. I understand that those touchpad can be enabled and disabled through some of the back-end settings of the Windows controls. And I'd love to have an Alt function that just simply said, touchpad off, touchpad on, so that if a sighted user needed to use the touchpad for whatever reason, they could do it, but for every other time I've got it off. It's so endless. The other thing before I go, I guess, that I'd like to share my enjoyment of is this functionality which they've called Speed Note. And again, it's just really bringing a whole bunch of things together. Having a text file just called speed notes or whatever you want to call it. But I can invoke Alt, type in a quick note to myself like don't forget to do this, or here's someone's telephone number, or whatever it might be, and Alt will run off, find that text document, open it, insert the text, put a date stamp next to it if I so choose, put a new line in so it's ready for the next entry, close the text document down altogether, and then drop me back where I started from, all in a matter of seconds. So it's really, really handy, I find, for maybe dumping some stuff off the clipboard that you want to save somewhere, or jotting down a quick note to yourself that you want to make sure you've kept it somewhere. And the beauty of it is that you can combine all this with Dropbox and keep your text file that I've been talking about in your Dropbox folder, where you can then access your notes from any other machine or even an iDevice or another smartphone that has access to Dropbox to get into and view those notes sort of pretty well anywhere. You've got this place where you can deposit links and thoughts and ideas and anything that you come across throughout the day, and you know that you can come back to it and find it later on when you need it. It's just another example of how you can use Alt to do all sorts of wonderful things, and really the sky's the limit.
Darren, we really appreciate you spending some time talking with us. We wish that you could have been here in person, but hey, Australia's a long way away. Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks, Tim, and I would love to meet you and the rest of the people there, maybe even next year. Who knows? We'll see what we can arrange.
I want to thank Darren Fittler, a blind attorney from Australia, for talking with us today. He's clearly demonstrated some of the efficiencies that can be obtained by using the Alt software. I think all blind professionals have a desire to become more efficient and to become just as competitive as their sighted peers, and I think Darren is a great example of how that can be done and how Alt can be one of the tools that gets that task accomplished.